The twin suns of Arathis set slowly, painting the alien sky in red and gold. Shadows stretched long across the busy market street where merchants called out their prices and children laughed while running between the stalls. It was a scene of life, of joy, of simple daily rhythm. But one child did not laugh. One child stood quietly near the fountain, watching, silent, eyes wide with something no other child carried. Fear. Jack, the only human in the city, noticed immediately. He had traveled far, from Earth to this alien world, searching for trade, searching for peace, maybe even searching for a place where he could feel less alone. Aliens filled the streets, tall, thin, with skin like polished stone and voices soft as wind. They smiled at him often, spoke with kind words, and treated him like a guest of honor. But the child near the fountain was not smiling. The child's small body trembled every time someone passed. And when the other children shouted in play, this one flinched. Jack leaned against a stone wall, pretending to watch the market, but his eyes never left the child. Something was wrong. He could feel it. Humans had instincts, deep and sharp. Instincts honed through survival on a world of predators and storms. And right now his instincts screamed that the child did not belong here. The aliens did not seem to notice, or maybe they did not care. Mothers carried food. Fathers bargained at stalls. Elders told stories under the trees. Everything looked normal. But Jack had been a soldier once, and he knew the look of someone trapped. That was the look in the child's eyes. The child's name, he would later learn, was Sci. At that moment he only saw the small figure dressed in a robe too large, hiding thin arms and small hands. The robe was carefully chosen, he thought, to cover something, and the way adults around the child kept glancing, never too long, never too obvious, made Jack's suspicion grow. Jack decided to test it. He stepped forward, walked casually toward the fountain, and let a coin fall into the water. The splash caught the child's attention. Sci looked up at him, and in that brief second, Jack saw the truth written in the child's eyes. Fear. Deep and desperate fear. Not the fear of a scolding or a mistake, but the fear of someone who lived under threat. Jack knelt slowly, gave a small smile, the way one does to gain trust. "Hello," he whispered, voice soft so the others would not hear. The child's lips trembled, and for an instant Jack thought he might answer. But then one of the tall aliens stepped closer, placing a hand on the child's shoulder. The child froze, eyes dropped, lips sealed. The alien smiled politely at Jack, nodding with that same practiced warmth. But Jack noticed the grip on the child's shoulder. Too firm, too controlling. The alien spoke. "Our children are shy around strangers, especially visitors from far stars." Jack nodded back, pretending to accept the excuse. But in his mind, he was already certain. This was no normal child, and this was no simple shyness. As the evening deepened, music filled the air, and lights glowed across the market. People danced, children laughed, merchants shouted. But through it all, Jack's gaze kept returning to the quiet child. He noticed how Sci never moved freely, how the alien always kept close, how the child's hands were hidden, always hidden. Once, when the alien bent to speak with another adult, the child's robe shifted slightly. For a moment Jack saw red marks circling the small wrist like scars from chains. The child quickly pulled the sleeve down, eyes darting, heart racing. Jack felt his own chest tighten. He could not prove it yet. But he knew it. The child was not safe. The child was trapped. And somehow, among all the aliens who smiled and pretended, only Jack, the human, saw the truth. The night ended, but Jack's mind did not rest. He walked back to his guest house, the alien city glowing behind him. The laughter and music still echoed in the streets. But for him, the sound was hollow. All he could see was the silent child by the fountain, eyes wide, body trembling, hiding scars under a robe. And Jack whispered to himself in the darkness, "I will find out who you are, little one. I will find out what they're hiding." Because humans could not look away when a child was in danger, and Jack, more than anyone, could never ignore the truth staring him in the face. The next morning came with pale light rising over the alien city. Jack walked through the stone streets, but his mind was not calm. The picture of the strange child stayed with him, haunting him. He could not shake the memory of those wide eyes, filled with silent fear, and the marks on the small wrist hidden under the robe. Most of all, he could not forget the way the alien's hand pressed down too tightly. The city of Arrakis looked peaceful, almost perfect. Tall towers curved into the sky. Bridges of crystal stretched across canals of glowing water. The aliens moved gracefully, speaking softly, trading goods, smiling with ease. To any traveler, it would look like paradise. But Jack had been in too many places that looked safe on the surface. He knew how to look deeper, how to see cracks beneath the paint. And he had seen a crack last night. It had the shape of a child. Jack decided to test the people. He asked simple questions while drinking in the tea shops, while walking in the market, while sitting with local workers. He asked about families, about children, about the way they raised their young. The aliens always answered politely, but something about their answers troubled him. They spoke with too much care, too many careful words, as if they were all reading from the same script. When he asked about the child near the fountain, their smiles grew tighter. Some changed the subject, others laughed softly as if he had made a harmless mistake. One merchant even said, "All our children are happy, human guest. You must not worry about things that do not concern you." But that was exactly the problem. It did concern him. Every word they spoke only added weight to his suspicion. Later in the afternoon, Jack returned to the fountain. The market was quieter, fewer people moving about, and once again, the child was there. Sorry, silent, small, watching the world without joy. The same alien guardian stood nearby, pretending to shop but always close. Jack pretended too, buying fruit, chatting with a seller, but his eyes stayed sharp. He noticed how the child never stepped away from the guardian, never played, never joined the other children. It was not shyness, not at all. It was fear. Jack felt his old instincts rise. He had been a soldier in places where danger was hidden. Behind smiles, he had walked into villages that looked safe until the gunfire began. He knew the look of people hiding a secret. The aliens were hiding one now, and the child was the key. That night, Jack wrote notes in his small book. He listed everything he had seen: the trembling, the hidden scars, the tight grip, the silence of the child. Then he wrote what he had heard: the careful answers, the forced laughter, the false reassurances. The pattern was clear. There was something about this child the aliens did not want him to know. Still, one question burned in his mind. Why only him? Why only the human? The aliens looked at the child and saw nothing, or pretended to see nothing. But when Jack looked, he saw truth. Was it human instinct, or something more? Was there a reason? Only his eyes caught the details. The next day, Jack followed them. When the guardian led the child away from the fountain, Jack moved quietly through the crowd. He stayed at a distance, blending in. The streets twisted through the city, glowing lanterns hanging above. Finally, the alien stopped at a tall building. Carved into the rock, the child was hurried inside. The alien glanced around once, sharp and watchful, before following. Jack waited in the shadows, heart beating hard. He knew he was stepping into danger, but he could not turn away. Something was wrong here, deeply wrong, and if he ignored it, he would never forgive himself. That night he returned, creeping toward the building under the cover of darkness. Strange symbols marked the walls, doors of heavy metal sealed the way. He placed a hand on the surface, cold as ice. From inside he thought he heard a faint sound, not alien, not strange, but the soft sob of a child. Jack stepped back, breath sharp in his chest. The suspicion had become certainty. The child was not just strange, not just different. The child was a prisoner, and somehow, in this entire city of watchers, only the human had seen the truth. He whispered into the night, "They think I will stay silent, they think I will look away. But they don't know humans." Jack's eyes burned with fire, and in that moment, he made a silent promise he would uncover their secret. He would free the child even if the whole alien city turned against him. The nights in Arathis were quiet, but Jack could not sleep. The alien city glowed softly under its twin moons, streets filled with gentle lights and flowing water. To others, it was peaceful, even beautiful. But to Jack, the silence felt heavy, like a lid pressed over secrets waiting to escape. He sat near his window, eyes sharp, mind restless. The child's face haunted him, the wide eyes, the trembling, the scars on the wrist. Every instinct told him there was more hidden beneath the surface, and when a soldier's instincts spoke, Jack knew better than to ignore them. He began to watch the city more closely. He noticed how certain streets were guarded at night, though no one admitted it. He noticed how certain buildings stayed dark but had shadows moving inside. Most of all, he noticed how the child, Sci, was never left alone, not for a single moment. The next morning, Jack returned to the fountain. This time, he came early, before the market filled with noise. The child was already there, sitting quietly, hands folded in the robe. The same alien guardian stood close, pretending to read a tablet. But eyes always on the child, Jack dropped another coin into the fountain, and again the splash made Sci look up. For a brief second their eyes met, and in that second Jack saw something new. A silent message, a quiet cry. "Help me." Jack's chest tightened, but he kept his face calm. He bent down, tied the lace of his boot, and whispered so only the child could hear. "I see you." Sci's eyes widened, the lips parted, but no sound came. The guardian shifted slightly, gaze sharp, and the child lowered the head again. Jack stood and walked away, but his mind burned with certainty. The child was reaching out even without words. That night Jack's dreams were not his own. He heard the soft voice of the child echoing in his sleep. Chains. Dark rooms. Hidden doors, the voice whispered. "They hide me because I am different." He woke in a cold sweat, the sound still ringing in his ears. He did not know if it was a dream or something else, but he knew it was a sign. The following day, Jack followed them again. He kept to the shadows, blending in with the crowd, moving slowly. The alien guardian led the child through narrow streets into a part of the city Jack had not yet seen. The walls here were older, carved with symbols that looked ancient. The air was colder, and fewer people walked these roads. Jack stayed far enough back to avoid suspicion, but close enough to see. They entered another dark building, tall and windowless. This time Jack crept closer, waiting until the door closed. He ran his hand across the wall, feeling strange marks etched into the stone. Symbols that pulsed faintly with light, as if alive, and then he saw it. Small scratches near the bottom of the wall, like fingernails clawing at the stone. Desperate. The scratches were too small for an adult, too weak for a creature of strength. They were the scratches of a child, Jack's breath, caught in his throat. His suspicion was no longer just suspicion. It was evidence. The child had tried to escape. The city was hiding something far darker than it wanted him to believe. He returned to his guest house and wrote again in his book. This time his notes were sharper, more urgent. "The child is held in secret," he wrote. "The guardians are not protectors, they are jailers. They cover scars, they silence voices, they erase truths." And then he underlined the final line. "Only I see it. Only I hear it." The next night, Jack tested the city once more. He asked the innkeeper about the building with strange symbols. The alien's eyes flickered just for a moment, a flash of fear before the smile returned. "There are no such places here," the alien said, voice too calm. "You must be mistaken, human guest." But Jack knew lies when he heard them, and this was a lie. Later he returned to the fountain. Sci stood again by the water, robe wrapped tightly. When the guardian turned away for a second, the child looked at him quickly. The sleeve shifted, revealing once more the red scars, deeper now than before. Sci quickly hid them, but it was too late. Jack had seen. Their eyes met again, and this time Jack did not look away. He gave the smallest nod, a promise without words. The child's lips moved silently, forming a single word. "Help." Jack walked away before the Guardian noticed, heart pounding. The signs were no longer hidden, they were clear. The city wanted to blind him with smiles, but he refused to be blind. The truth was breaking through the cracks, and Jack knew if he did not act soon, the child might vanish forever. He whispered to himself as he stepped into the night. They can lie, they can hide, they can cover the scars. But humans see what others ignore, and I will not stop until the truth is mine. The city of Arathis glowed under its moons, but Jack no longer saw beauty. He saw shadows, secrets, and danger hiding behind every friendly smile. The child's silent plea, help, echoed in his mind again and again, and he knew he was walking on a knife's edge, yet he could not turn away. That night he prepared, he carried no weapon, for weapons would only bring suspicion. Instead, he carried a small light, a knife for cutting rope, and his courage. He left his guest house silently and moved through the empty streets. The air was colder than before, and the city felt less alive, as if it knew he was coming. Jack's destination was clear, the dark building with the strange symbols, the place where he had seen the child taken, the place where scratches marked the walls like silent screams. When he reached it, the building loomed over him, tall and heavy. The glowing symbols pulsed faintly on the stone, strange light moving. Like veins, the metal doors were closed, thick and ancient. Jack pressed his ear against them. For a moment, silence. And then, a faint sound, the soft, broken cry of a child. It was real, not a dream this time. His heart pounded. He checked the street, saw no one, and slipped into the shadows at the side. There he found a narrow crack in the stone wall, half hidden by vines. It was not large, but Jack was human, shorter and stronger than these tall aliens. He squeezed through, scraping his shoulders, until he found himself in a dark passage. The air inside was damp, carrying the smell of metal and stone. The corridor sloped downward, deeper into the earth. Jack's footsteps echoed softly as he moved, each step louder in his own ears. At the end of the passage, he reached a heavy door. Strange runes glowed faintly across its surface. He touched them, and for a second his vision blurred. A whisper filled his mind, alien words twisting like smoke. But then it faded, and the door creaked open. What Jack saw inside froze him. In place, the chamber was wide, filled with machines humming softly. Strange lights blinked. Tubes of liquid glowed against the walls. And in the center, behind a cage of shining energy, was the child, Sari, sitting on the floor, knees pulled to the chest, eyes wide with terror. Jack stepped closer. The child looked up, recognition flickering in those tired eyes. For the first time, lips parted and a weak voice whispered, "You came." Jack swallowed hard, his throat tight. "Yes," he whispered back. "I came." But he could not act yet. The energy, cage hummed with power, alien technology he did not understand. He searched the room quickly, eyes moving over the consoles and controls. Strange symbols glowed across every screen. He could not read them, but he could guess. This was no ordinary prison. Suddenly, a sound echoed behind him. Footsteps, heavy and fast. Jack turned and saw 2 alien guards entering, tall and armored, weapons in their hands. Their eyes narrowed as they saw him standing before the cage. "You should not be here, human," one of them said. Voice low and cold, Jack stepped back slowly, his mind racing. He had been caught. The child cried out, "No, don't hurt him." The aliens ignored the plea, moving closer. But Jack's soldier instincts flared alive. He grabbed a loose metal bar from the floor, swinging it hard. The first guard stumbled, surprised. Jack ducked under the second's weapon, rolling across the floor. He did not fight to win, only to escape. He sprinted toward the door, heart racing. Behind him, the guards shouted. Alarms began to wail. Red lights flashed across the chamber, bathing everything in blood color. The child's voice screamed one last time, "Come back!" And then the heavy doors slammed shut behind him. Jack ran through the dark passage, lungs burning. The sound of alarms echoed through the city now. He knew he had uncovered something terrible, something the aliens would kill to protect. The child. was not one of them. The child was something else, something important, and Jack was the only one who had seen the truth. When he reached the open street, the city no longer looked peaceful. Guards rushed through the alleys, searching, the glowing. Towers seemed colder, sharper. Every smile he had once seen now felt like a mask hiding teeth. He pressed against the shadows, breathing hard. The dangerous discovery burned in his chest. The child was a prisoner, hidden from the world, trapped behind alien power. And now the city knew he had seen it. The hunt had begun, Jack whispered, to himself. They think they can scare me. They think they can hide their lies. But they are wrong. Humans do not look away. And with fire in his eyes, he vanished into the night. The city of Arathis no longer felt safe. Its glowing towers and crystal bridges now looked like traps. Alarms echoed through the night, sharp and cold. The guards were searching, their heavy steps pounding against the stone streets. And Jack knew one thing for certain. He had been discovered. He moved quickly through narrow alleys, his breath sharp in the cool air. Shadows clung to him as he slipped past glowing lanterns, but every corner felt dangerous. Every street watched. The aliens had seen him near the child. Now they would not rest until they caught him. Jack's mind raced. The image of the child behind the glowing cage burned in his memory. Sari's voice calling out, "Come back," still rang in his ears. He had promised silently that he would not leave the child behind, and promises made to children were promises he would never break. The city was alive with movement. Strange flying machines glided overhead, shining beams of light across the streets. Guards marched in groups, checking doorways, questioning families, everywhere. Jack turned. The net was closing. But humans had one gift the aliens underestimated: the gift of instinct, the gift of running where no one expected. He ducked into a side tunnel, heart pounding. The passage was narrow, the walls damp and carved with old symbols. His footsteps splashed against shallow water as he moved deeper inside. For a moment he thought he had escaped, but then he heard it. The sharp hum of alien weapons behind him, voices shouted echoing through the tunnel. Jack ran faster. The tunnel split into two paths, and without hesitation he chose the darker one. His instincts screamed that the obvious way was a trap. He trusted those instincts, always. The path twisted, rising upward, until at last he burst out into an open courtyard. The twin moons glowed above, bathing him in cold light. He tried to steady his breath, but then he froze. Across the courtyard stood more guards, their eyes glowing faint in the shadows. They had predicted his path. He was surrounded. For a second, doubt filled his mind. He was only one man, alone in an alien city. But then he remembered the child's eyes, desperate and pleading, and he felt his fear turn to fire. He grabbed a loose stone from the ground and hurled it. It struck a lantern, shattering it into sparks. The courtyard filled with sudden darkness. Shouts rang out as the guards stumbled, their glowing eyes flickering. Jack used the chaos to sprint toward a low wall, climbing fast. He dropped to the other side and landed hard, pain shooting through his leg, but he kept moving. The chase grew louder, boots clanged behind him, lights swept across rooftops. Everywhere he went, the city seemed alive with the hunt. But Jack refused to stop, because somewhere in that maze of stone and light a child was still trapped. He slipped through a broken archway, finding himself in an abandoned part of the city. The buildings here were old, cracked, forgotten. For a moment the silence returned, broken only by his own ragged breathing. He leaned against the wall, closing his eyes, but then he heard it again. A voice, faint, carried on the air. "Help me." Jack's eyes snapped open. It was not a dream this time, it was real. The child's voice was calling him, guiding him. He followed the sound, weaving through the ruins, until he reached a hidden stairway that spiraled downward. The steps creaked under his weight. The air grew colder, the darkness thicker. At the bottom, a narrow corridor stretched ahead, glowing faintly with alien light. Jack pressed forward, heart steady now, because he knew where this path would lead. Back to the child, but before he reached the end, a shadow moved. Another guard stepped into his way, weapon raised. The alien's voice was low and certain. You will not take what is ours. Jack's grip tightened on the small knife he carried. He had no choice. The chase had led him here, and now the fight would begin. The guard lunged, weapon flashing. Jack dodged, the blade grazing his arm. Pain hot and sharp. He slashed with his knife, striking the alien's side. The creature roared, stumbling. Jack pushed past, running again, ignoring the blood on his skin. At last he saw it, the same chamber he had discovered before. The cage of glowing energy stood in the center, and inside Sari looked up with wide eyes. You came back, the child whispered. Jack forced a smile even through the pain. I promised, he said, voice rough. And humans keep their promises. But behind him, footsteps thundered closer. The guards were coming, faster, angrier, stronger. The chase was not over. It had only just begun. The chamber shook with alarms, red light flashing across the walls. Jack stood before the glowing cage, breath heavy, blood on his arm. Behind him, the thunder of footsteps grew louder, guards closing in from every side. But in front of him, the child waited, eyes wide with both hope and fear. Sari pressed small hands against the glowing barrier. Please, the child whispered, voice trembling. Don't leave me here. Jack's jaw tightened, his heart beating like fire. I won't, he said. I promised, and humans don't break promises. He scanned the controls nearby, panels filled with alien symbols. The language was strange, but patterns spoke louder than words. One panel glowed brighter, pulsing in time with the energy cage. Jack slammed his hand against it, sparks flew. The hum of the barrier faltered for a moment but did not fall. The door behind him burst open, guards storming inside, weapons raised. Jack grabbed a heavy pipe from the floor and swung it with all his strength. The first guard staggered back, crashing into the console. The second aimed a weapon, blue light charging at its tip. Jack ducked, the blast searing past his shoulder, burning the wall. The console flickered and suddenly the energy field cracked. Sari gasped, feeling the air shift. The barrier weakened, glowing less bright. Push, Sari! Jack shouted. Push through it now! The child pressed harder, trembling. For a moment it seemed impossible. But then something strange happened. A faint light glowed from the child's skin, soft but powerful. The glow pulsed, resonating with the cage, and with a cry, the energy shattered. Sari stumbled forward into Jack's arms. The child clung tightly, face buried in his chest. Jack held the small figure close. It's over, he whispered. You're free now. But he knew it was not over yet. The guards roared in anger, advancing. Jack pulled the child behind him, standing firm. But before the guards could strike, the same light from Sari's body flared brighter. The aliens froze, shielding their eyes as the glow grew stronger. It was not fire, not lightning, but something deeper, something alive, something only humans seemed able to awaken. The guards stumbled back, blinded, their weapons clattering to the floor. The light filled the chamber, opening cracks along the walls. The machines sparked, the consoles shattered, and in the chaos, Jack grabbed Sari's hand. Run, he said, and they ran. They rushed through the corridors, alarms still blaring. Every corner brought danger, but the child's glow guided their way. Whenever a guard appeared, the light grew stronger, forcing them to fall back. Jack realized with awe that this child carried something powerful, something the aliens feared. Not just innocence, not just hope, but a hidden strength. They climbed stairs, pushed through tunnels. The sound of pursuit never faded, but the exit drew closer. Jack's body ached, blood dripping from his wound. But he never slowed. Sari's hand stayed in his, small yet unyielding. At last they burst through a broken doorway. Cool night air rushed against their faces. The city lay ahead, glowing towers rising against the moons. But now the streets were alive with guards, searching, hunting. Jack pulled the child into a narrow alley, pressing against the shadows. We need to get out of the city, he whispered. There's no safety here. Sari looked up, eyes filled with tears but also determination. I know a way, the child said softly. They hid me here, but I remember the tunnels below. Guided by the child, they slipped through hidden paths, down narrow stairs, across bridges of stone, through passages that smelled of dust and time. Everywhere Jack felt the danger, but everywhere the child's glow opened the way. The aliens' voices echoed, but they could not catch them. The tunnels wound deeper until at last they reached a wide gate, rusted and half-buried. Jack pushed it with all his strength. The metal groaned and shifted. A cold wind rushed through, carrying the scent of open land. Beyond the gate stretched the dark wilderness outside the city walls. Stars glimmered above, sharp and endless. Freedom waited. But before they could step out, one final figure appeared, the alien guardian who had always stood near the child. The tall figure blocked the way, eyes burning with rage. "You cannot take what belongs to us," the alien hissed, voice shaking. With fury, Jack stood in front of the child, fists clenched. "She never belonged to you," he growled. "She belongs to herself." The alien raised a weapon, glowing with deadly light. But before he could strike, the child stepped forward. The glow from Sari's body erupted like a sun. The ground shook, the stars seemed to pulse. The alien screamed, dropping the weapon, stumbling back into the shadows. The light faded, leaving only silence. The path ahead was clear. Jack knelt beside the child, placing a hand on the small shoulder. "You saved us both," he said softly. "You're stronger than they ever knew." Sari gave a faint smile, the first real smile Jack had seen. "Only a human could see me," the child whispered, "and only a human could help me escape." Together they stepped through the gate, leaving the city of lies behind them. The night was dark, the road uncertain, but they were free. And Jack knew the final part of the story was yet to come. The wilderness outside Arathis stretched wide and endless. Cold winds carried dust across the barren hills, and the twin moons painted the land in silver light. Jack and Sari moved carefully, each step carrying them farther away from the glowing city of lies. Behind them alarms still echoed faintly, but the sound grew weaker with every mile. For the first time since his arrival, Jack felt the weight of freedom. The child clung to his hand, small fingers gripping tight. Sari's robe was torn, face pale, but the eyes burned with something new. Not only fear, but also courage. Jack looked down at the child and whispered, "We're safe. For now." But he knew safety was fragile. Safety was only the beginning. They found shelter in a shallow cave, hidden by rocks. Inside, the air was dry, the shadows deep. Jack built a small fire, its orange glow pushing back the cold night. Sari sat beside it, staring into the flames as if seeing freedom for the first time. After a long silence, the child finally spoke, voice soft but clear. "They took me because I am different." Jack turned, his eyes narrowing. "What do you mean?" he asked gently. Sari raised a hand, and once again that strange light pulsed beneath the skin. "They fear this," the child said. "They fear what I can do." Jack's breath caught. The glow was human, not alien, something alive and ancient. It felt familiar, though he had never seen it before. "They told me I was their child," Sari continued, "but I always knew I was not. They said I was chosen, but really, I was stolen." Jack clenched his fists, anger burning in his chest. Kidnapped, hidden, forced to live in silence. The city had built its perfect image on cruelty, and only he had seen through it. "Why me?" Jack asked softly. "Why could I see when no one else did?" Sari looked up, the firelight dancing in the eyes. "Because you are human," the child said. "Only humans can see the truth." Jack frowned, trying to understand, but in his heart the words rang true. Humans had always been different, stubborn, sharp, unwilling to bow. And maybe, just maybe, that difference was the key. The night passed slowly, filled with distant sounds of search parties, but none came close to their hiding place. By morning the winds cleared the tracks, erasing signs of their escape. Jack and Sari stepped out into the dawn, the sky painted in gold and red. For the first time the child smiled, a real smile, small but alive. As they walked, Jack thought of what he had witnessed. The cage, the symbols, the way the aliens had panicked when the child's light appeared. It was more than fear. It was knowledge. They had always known humans carried something dangerous to their lies, something they could never control. And that was why only a human had seen the scars, the chains, the silent truth. By midday, they reached a ridge, overlooking the land beyond. Forests stretched in the distance. Rivers glimmered like silver threads. The world was vast, filled with both danger and hope. Jack placed a hand on Sari's shoulder. "We will keep moving," he said. "We will find a place where they can't touch you." The child nodded, determination shining in the eyes. "Together," Sari whispered, "we are stronger." Jack smiled faintly. "Yes," he said, "together." As the sun set once more, Jack thought about Earth, his home far away, a place of flaws but also of freedom. If he could reach it, if he could bring Sari there, the truth would finally be safe and the lies of Arathis would be exposed. They camped under the stars that night. The fire crackled softly and Sari leaned against Jack, tired but calm. Before sleep came, the child spoke again, voice steady. "I always believed someone would see me. And I always believed it would be a human." Jack closed his eyes, feeling the weight of those words. He had not chosen this path, but it had chosen him. The truth was clear now. The aliens feared humans because humans could not be blinded. Humans carried something no cage could hold. The power to see, the power to fight, the power to free. When dawn came again, Jack stood tall, looking out at the horizon. He knew their journey was far from over, but he also knew this was only the beginning. Because in a galaxy filled with lies and control, there would always be one truth. Only the human saw it, and only the human could never let it die. He looked down at the child, who smiled back with quiet strength, and together they stepped into the rising light, free, united, and unbroken. The story of the strange child's kidnapping was no longer hidden. The truth was alive, carried by a human heart,